measurement that we can take. Whereas with swimming, we kind of have to use more of the educated, not educated guesses, although it is to some extent that, but educated use of the physics. So we really need, and I tell my students that all the time, even the ones that know nothing about swimming, it's just think about it logically. What's the aim of the skill you're trying to do? Where the forces need to be applied? How are we going to adjust body position to get those forces to act the way that we want them to? Okay? So that just kind of hopefully clarifies what we're talking about. Just a few things I want to go through. Just kind of lay a bit of a framework. So when we are talking about biomechanics here, or if you're talking with a biomechanist at home, there's a few just terminology things we just need to kind of lay down for you. So when we do talk about references within the body, we talk about these planes of motion, movement. So they are because we move in a three-dimensional world. We've got three planes and three axes. So transverse is that kind of cuts you in half motion, anything that happens in there. Plane, because we move in a three-dimensional world, you're looking at somebody head on, three axes. And sagittal transverse, standing side on, and moving, cutting me. And then we have so actually for motion, straight line motion, or side rotations, but then the axis rotation, and this is where you start talking like we've got freestyle stroke, long axis stroke, butterfly stroke, short axis stroke. That's where this comes from. So you've got the anterior, posterior, stroke right through your axis, steering butterfly longitudinal, so that's our long axis, freestyle backstroke, posterior, and then medial lateral stroke right through your axis, hip flexion extension, longitudinal, that's how we get the butterfly backstroke, short axis stroke, posterior, and then medial lateral stroke right through your axis. A few other terms, force, you need to get into energetics and things like that. Basically, a force is something that causes motion in a straight line. Okay? Force is something similar but causes a rotation on an axis. Basically, a force is something that causes motion in a straight line and rotation. Swimming is already kind of aquatic-based sport. Like normally for land-based sports, we don't worry about center buoyancy. But we do, for everything we deal with center of gravity. Center of gravity, center of mass, whatever you want to call it, same thing. So essentially what that is a single point in your body that represents all the mass of your body. All right? You know, if anybody ever done the trick of how to find the center of mass on a stick or anything? You start wide and you kind of slide your fingers close together. So it's basically that kind of balance point, right? That's exactly what that is. So if I were to lie down on the ground here, my center of mass is going to be roughly there. If I raise an arm up that way, I've got more mass on this side, so it's going to shift up slightly. More mass this way. It's going to keep going up. Depending how you move. It's not a fixed point. It is going to move according to what position your body's in. Center of buoyancy is slightly different in that it's the center of the mass of the displaced water. Okay. So if you think about when you're lying in the water, you and the water don't take up the same space at the same time. You're displacing that out. So and not all of your body is necessarily going to be underwater. So if you're lying like this, you got to lift back your head, bombs sitting out of the water. So really we're only worried about this bit that's under the water there. So it's going to be the center of that volume, which again will change depending on how you're positioned, how much is up out of the water. Okay. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. Another term that we will run into every now and then is impulse. And what that is gives you an idea of roughly how effective a force is going to be when you apply it. And how you get it is you take this force that you're applying and how long that force has been applied for. So really we're looking at the area under the curve. So in this case, you can apply a big force over a pretty short period of time, or you can apply a lower force over a longer period of time. So you can apply the stroke rates, all those kinds of things. So it's a useful thing to know that there are basically there's more than one way to skin a cat in a lot of ways. You need to have an output of a change in velocity. So that's what we're trying to achieve, right? And you're going to do that by applying a force over a given period of time. So you can either do that really big force all at once, or lower force over a period of time. Another one is velocity and acceleration. Sometimes this gets a little bit muddled for some people. It's not. In theory, it's not that complicated, but it can get a little bit confusing at times when you start talking on deck and things. So really the whole way this works is as you move, you're gonna move from some given distance, right? How far you move in a certain amount of time gives you that velocity. Okay. So if you're changing that distance consistently, so you're just kind of moving at a consistent velocity. So your velocity is flat, right? But if that starts to change, if the velocity that you're moving in starts to change, that's where we have acceleration. So you're either speeding up, positive acceleration, slowing down, negative acceleration. All right. So we'll see that obviously as you look at any swimming stroke. We run into these all the time. So the influence of that, again, we'll talk about a little bit. But so basically velocity is change in distance in a given amount of time. Acceleration is the change in velocity in a given amount of time. Okay, makes sense? Hopefully, sort of. All right. So you really can't talk about any kind of physics really without talking about Newton's laws. So these are basically three laws that more or less kind of govern physics as we know them really. At least the kind of physics we're talking about for this. So this is kind of the main body in motion or body at rest will tend to stay that way unless the force acts on the body. Okay. That's the old you're floating in space, moving along. There's no other forces acting on you. How do you stop? How do you change direction? That's why I always keep a spare wrench. Remember that? You're in space. Throw it away where you want to go. You get a reaction because you get another force. Otherwise you'll just keep going in one direction forever. So we obviously don't have that problem. We've got forces acting on us all the time. So we don't tend to just kind of keep moving. This is the old before Einstein came up with E equals MC squared. That was the equation everybody knew. Kind of not as common these days, it seems like. But how quick or what the acceleration of any object is going to be proportional to the mass of it, how big it is, how massive it is, and the magnitude of the force that you're actually applying. So if you have a light object and you apply a big force, you get high acceleration. If it's a really massive object, same force, you're going to get a low acceleration. And then you can play around with all the different combinations. And then everybody kind of knows this one for reaction is an equal and opposite reaction. So those three just kind of frame everything that we're going to be talking about. All right, so apply some of these to actual swimming. When we do talk about stability with relation to buoyancy, when you become stable when you're in the water, what needs to be happening is that if you draw a vertical line through the center of gravity and a vertical line through the center of buoyancy, they basically need to be lined up. So if those two are lined up, then you're going to be stable. If they're offset, like they are here, okay, you're actually going to get a rotation. Because things are going to tend to rotate basically around your center of gravity, your center of mass. So you can just imagine that center of buoyancy is applying a force to the body, and it's trying to rotate your body around the center of gravity. So it'll keep pushing, pushing you up, really, until the center of gravity lines up underneath you. So again, you can change that though. That's why you get, lie out long streamline. What's happening to the center of mass? Okay, like I said before, if you're like lying in the water like this, legs are going to tend to sink. The center of mass is here, and the center of buoyancy is here. Okay, if I do a nice long stretch, I'm going to shift my center of mass up. Center of buoyancy isn't really going to change too much because you have the same submerged volume. It'll change slightly, but not too much. But they'll be in more closer position where they're going to be lined up, so then you can float level. Okay, so you obviously need some strength and things as well, but that's the main criteria for being stable in the water using buoyancy. Okay, another thing we have to take into consideration, and this is for most complex movements, not just swimming, but how many joints are involved in joint sequencing. So this is when we look at timing through, going from catch, in sweep, out sweep, whatever. How we actually sequence that motion is actually really important. It's how, when if you're throwing a ball, you're not going to go there, stop, throw there, or you're not going to go there and do some random action. It's going to be one big sequence, usually starting at the big body parts. So with your trunk, moving through the upper arm, forearm, hand, to get the biggest cumulative effect, in this case in velocity. So if you time things properly, and that's what we'll see when somebody times how they initiate a pull, you'll get that proper sequence and you'll get an optimal outcome from the hand speed. Okay, then like we were saying before, talking about impulse. So this here is roughly a hand force curve from a freestyle pull. So this is entry, just early extension leading into the catch. And then once the hand actually starts moving backwards, you start actually being able to apply a force. You can see it as the hand is accelerating through the stroke. You'll get an increase of force to a point, and then it drops off towards the finish. So that force there, for swimming purposes, we would call a resistive or a negative force, because you're moving against the flow of water, so you're actually essentially slowing yourself down. And then all the green is the positive, more propulsive forces. Okay, and then the direction of the force. This is where you get into the debate on lift and drag forces. Everybody somewhat know about contribution of lift and drag to propulsion. You guys done a bit of that? That's been a discussion that's gone on for 40 plus years, really. Probably actually quite a bit longer than that. And again, and this comes back to that earlier statement where we find it really hard to actually get some of these measures. So there's been a little bit of research on this, but it's still not 100% for sure. We still don't know precisely what the contributions are between drag and lift to get most out of propulsion. It has changed quite a lot. In the old days, everything was pure drag, so it was just everything straight line, kind of paddle wheel motions. You just wanted to apply everything straight back. Then you had councilmen in the 60s saying, no, it's all lift. And then that changed again back in late 90s, early 2000s, I suppose. And people said, no, it's more all drag. And I think really what we've seen in most of the research nowadays is that it's both, really. Probably is dominated by drag force, but there is still definitely a lift contribution. So I know it's probably just getting more confusing than anything, but we do need to kind of take that into consideration when we start looking at how forces and the direction, how forces are generated in the direction that they're actually being applied in. And just don't forget that there is going to be some kind of lift contribution to what's happening. All right, now the biggies that we do have to deal with, and so this is just the fundamentals of it. So again, when you're talking with the biomechanist, they should be thinking, because the aim of swimming obviously is to get between point A and point B as fast as you can. So the way you do that is you increase propulsion and you reduce drag. So the first thing we've got to do is try to reduce drag, hopefully. So just so we're clear, there are 3 main types that we're dealing with. There are a couple other small ones, much effect on swimming, but for our purposes, the big one and probably the main one is form drag, which is really your frontal area. So how much, if you're looking at me head on through the water and you can see that much of my body, that's quite a big frontal area. If I get down into a streamline position and you look head on, it's whatever area you can see. So that's one of the main influences, because really what's happening, which actually I'll show you that in a second. Second one is friction. So just the simple resistance of water moving against your skin or togs or whatever you happen to be wearing, caps, goggles, everything like that. That one does have an effect. It's not huge, okay? It often can be a bit overstated at times, for swimming at least, especially with when you take into consideration what's happening with the water itself. And then we've got wave drag. This kind of traditionally has been a little bit underestimated. I'm a little bit biased on that because I did my PhD on wave drag. But it's been shown that that can be up to about half of the total drag that you're encountering during swimming. Okay, so it's a big influence. And the reason that, well, how it actually works is that as you move through the water's got to get out of the way, right? So if the water gets pushed up by you, it's got to come back down again due to gravity, right? So you end up getting a wave. So to raise that water, we've got to use energy to actually lift that water up above the surface level. So that's energy that you can't use for propulsion. Okay, so it's basically a waste, which is basically what drag is. So the bigger the waves are, the more wave drag you're going to have. There's some debate that you can recapture some of that energy, but some of that's a little bit idealistic and really applies to like dolphins and not so much to humans. But the other one, so one of the things we can do is slight changes in technique. Potentially we can change something about the shape of the body. So that could be one of the things with the super suits and even some of the current suits that are really highly compressive. That may have a slight effect on wave drag. Theoretically it may. Or we can play around with underwater aspects. Where wave drag is actually the highest is when you are just below the surface of the water, okay? So that's where if you've got swimmers that are coming up on a breakout and they come up and they sit, 10 centimeters below the surface of the water, kicking madly and then break out, they're wasting an enormous amount of energy because drag is going to be huge at that point. So you need to be a bit more aggressive on coming through that top layer of water. What we've seen is that its maximum is kind of the top half meter, roughly, okay? So if you're coming and just sitting below that surface in that kind of depth, you are actually wasting a fair bit of energy. So how we deal with that, form drag, as I said, is really dealt with by body shape, and one of the big issues with that is length. That's what we have seen for most of the strokes. Freestyle and backstroke probably in particular, the long axis strokes, is that the athletes are getting notionally a bit taller. That probably is slowing down a little bit now, but you still look at elite level and they'll tend to be longer. Again, we don't need to get into the whole physics of that. It does relate to wave drag as well, but I'm not going to worry about that now. Cross-sectional area for the friction stuff. What the materials are, whether you shave down, all those kinds of issues. And then there's fluid characteristics, and for these, there's not a whole lot we can do about it. The density of the pool water is not going to change. Velocity, obviously that is up to us as swimmers. and then how much turbulence is in the water. And most of the time for us, that's really not too much of a problem. So the ways that we try to deal with this, the number one thing really is streamlining, and that depends on body position. And this is where we get to the thing, especially with the younger kids, that's the number one issue you should be looking at, is just general body position in the water. Don't worry about, are they getting a really nice high elbow catch, or what's their ankle flexibility like for their kick and all that kind of stuff. Get their body positions sorted out early, so that we want them moving through the water like that, not like that, okay? So this kind of just while I'm here. When I do talk about form drag, this gives you a kind of a good example of what's actually happening with form drag. Because really what it is the pressure difference between the bit of water in front of the body and behind the body. So in this situation where you've got all this turbulent water through here, that's really low pressure, and you've got high pressure up at the front. So when that difference front to back is really high, you've got a high form drag. So the more you can reduce this area of low pressure behind the body, the lower the drag is going to be. That's why that position is better. You've just got a small area of turbulence. This is a bit idealized, but relative to the front. So the streamlined position like that, you're going to have a lower drag. We could, in theory, play around with some fairings like they do on aerodynamics, but that's probably not going to be allowed, I would imagine, by FINA. Another one is the surface characteristics of the suits in particular. This goes back to the old original fast skin suits. So they were saying that they were basing it on this. So that's actual shark skin. That's what it looks like. And this is what the material of a fast skin actually looks like. Not really a whole lot similar there. So they really probably were not doing what they thought they were